Alrighty, so the midweek action is in the books. In fact, it's been in the books for about 12 hours now, as it's the next day after all of these midweek action has finished. Of course, I had to watch some of the highlights and also do the board in terms of writing down the notes today because, I wasn't able to watch a lot of games yesterday since I was ground hopping. But in terms of the midweek action, well, there wasn't as much crazy action as we saw on Saturday. I mean, what we saw on Saturday and also on Friday was probably peak MLS in terms of every single game just kind of gone off the rail. And like I said, it didn't really kind of happen in most of these midweek games, but there's still some very interesting headlines and certainly some teams that desperately needed a win got a win. And one of those teams is Atlanta United, who of course got a 2-1 win against RSL. And, they needed this win badly because it's been a turbulent week for Atlanta United, from the historic bad home loss against Austin in the last game to Joseph Martinez not only sounding off on the players but also sounding off on the front office. Now, he didn't play in this, well, he didn't actually start in this game. He did actually come off the bench, and I'm not quite sure that had something to do with his tirade that he made a couple of days ago. But one thing we know is that Atlanta definitely rallied behind their leader, because this was a much better performance for Atlanta United and probably would have won it comfortably if they were a little bit better in terms of their finishing. But either way, like I said, this was a much needed win that Atlanta needed after just such a turbulent last couple of days. Now, in the first half, 5 minutes in, McMath did tip Franco's header over the bar, but then in the 8th minute, Ronaldo Cisneros scored from Amada to give Atlanta United a 1-0 lead. I mean, Cisneros has kind of gone on a bit of a cold streak ever since. Remember, he scored the hat trick for Atlanta United and his first ever hat trick, but he definitely was on his game, and he kind of had something to prove too, because he knows that Joseph Martinez is not a happy man, and to kind of please his leader, he decided to get on the score sheet to give his team a 1-0 lead, and it could have been 2-0, and he could have had a second goal if he didn't hit one straight to McMath. And it was just all Atlanta. Again, Atlanta, it feels like they had a chip on their shoulder in this game, and that it almost felt like it was a must-win after what happened a couple of days ago. Moreno then fired one just high from long range before McMath denied Amada from long range. The first chance for RSL came in the 32nd minute as Rubin's shot goes straight to Rios Novo. But then in the 33rd minute, Cisneros would score again. This time he scored from Rissetto to give Atlanta a 2-0 lead, but that lead quickly went back down to 1 just 4 minutes later as Johan Kapelhoff scored his first career MLS goal. It's been 6 years now ever since he's made his debut for the Chicago Fire, and it's kind of surprising that he has never scored a goal in MLS, but he finally did in this game as he scored from Meram and Brody to put RSL back into this game, though Moreno looked to rescore that 2-goal lead for Atlanta, but he blasts one just high from the free kick in the first minute of stoppage time, and we head to halftime with Atlanta holding a 2-1 lead over RSL. Now, in the second half, once again, Atlanta was on the front foot, and they were looking for a third, knowing the fact that this is a team that at time has the tendency of giving up late goals. That third goal and that ensuring 2-goal lead is a must. Though Meram did hit one straight to Rios Novo in the 59th minute before Amada almost made it 3-1, but the post denied him there from long range. Amada had a really good game in this one, and so are these Atlanta attack. Like that was one of the biggest criticism in the last game, where most of those most of the attackers were good, but I would say it was more on the defensive part, and throughout this game the defense was much better, but it kind of also helped the fact that Atlanta was pretty much in complete control of this game. Though Moreno did miss just wide from 17 yards out, and again, Atlanta has missed a lot of chances, and anytime when you miss that many chances, we've seen times before where teams miss these chances could come back to haunt them, and it looked like it did immediately after I wrote that, as Cordova actually scored there to tie the game up, but Atlanta was saved by the flag as it was disallowed for offside there. Cho then had a shot that was clear off the line in the 79th minute before Cordova hits one straight to Rios Novo as RSL was trying to push to get that equalizer. But in the end, Atlanta got a much-needed 2-1 win against RSL. And the shots in this one, 14 shots for the 10 that RSL had, 4 shots on goal for the 7 that Atlanta has, 3 shots off target for the 6 that Atlanta has, 1 shot that was blocked for the 3 that RSL had. And possession-wise, 54% possession compared to 46% possession that Real Salt Lake has in this game. And, you know, like I said, it's a much-needed win for Atlanta, and let's see if this is going to be a beginning of them building up some momentum, because it's been a year of underachieving for this team, and that, you know, that as we get into the second half of the season, it's almost now or never in terms of them getting their stuff together so that they can even make it to the playoffs. But for RSL, yeah, I mean, things have kind of took a turn for its worse again. It feels like they're back in that slump where, remember how in the beginning of the season they had a great start and then they had a bit of a slump and then they kind of picked themselves up? Well, they're now back in that slump. 4 games without a win, and it's going to be interesting to see how they're going to dig themselves out of this little mini slump that they're in, because they are definitely falling down the table, and especially how tight the Western Conference is, especially between 3rd all the way down to 9th place. You know, if RSL continue to struggle, they can easily find themselves below the red line. But now moving on, in terms of the next match, is what I call the wooden spoon derby between the Chicago Fire and Toronto FC, even though technically it isn't really a wooden spoon derby, and that these two teams, I mean, one of these teams are at the bottom of the Eastern Conference and the other there isn't, but still, you know, I think a couple of weeks when both of these teams were playing against each other, I kind of called this the wooden spoon derby, and that was the one where Toronto was able to get the win. But in this game, Chicago returned the favor. They won 2-0 in this game, and the guy by the name of John Duran, he turns out to have had a great game in this one, because just 4 minutes in, he would score from Mueller to give the Fire a 1-0 lead, though this came off of a turnover from TFC in the midfield. I mean, that shouldn't be a big surprise, because that just sums up the year for Toronto this season, where their defense are just creating some self-inflicted mistake over and over again, and here we are again, just giving the ball away in the midfield, and the Fire was able to capitalize that. But it was a promising start for the Chicago Fire, and the only difference between me saying that is because, well, I said that a lot with the Fire when they get off to a good start, actually had a lead, and that's something that doesn't happen a lot, especially of them. They don't usually score very early in the game, so it must be a huge refresher with them already getting a 1-0 lead. It was almost 2-0 when Mueller tried to chip it over the head of Westberg but missed high. But it was 2-0 in the 16th minute, and it's Duran again scored from Gutierrez to give the Fire a 2-0 lead. What a first touch that was from Gutierrez. Brought that down from high up in the air and played a perfect pass to Duran, who made no mistake there to give the Fire a 2-0 lead. Though at the same time, I also thought that defending once again was non-existent for TFC. Like, the amount of space that they were allowing the Fire to attack was just, yeah, they were asking to basically conceding goals. And I know, even though you're playing against a Fire team that hasn't been very lethal this season on the attack, you know, when you give up that many space to opposition, yeah, you still are going to be asked for it to concede a goal, and that for TFC was a disastrous start, already conceding 2 goals inside 16 minutes. It was almost 3-0 when Navarro had a one-hopper that goes right to Westberg before Slonina actually denied Mark Anthony K, as that was Toronto's first big opportunity. As I said in the News of the Week episode, Mark Anthony K making that big move from Colorado back to TFC, to the team that originally let him go to join to LAFC, and that it's kind of interesting that it kind of eventually came full circle with the way that he's now returning for TFC. But we do head to halftime with Chicago leading 2-0, and heading into the second half, Duran trying to score a hat-trick here, and he tried to do it in a sensational style with him hitting a volley, but unfortunately he took a swing and a miss there. Not much happening in the first 15 minutes, which favored the Fire, but you just kind of feel like that's kind of deja vu, the thing that I said that, because I said the same thing in the last game against Columbus, and we know how that, of course, went for the Chicago Fire. In fact, I even wrote that let's just hope no deja vu for the Fire, because here we are again, 2-0 lead heading into the last 30 minutes. Can they hold on to it, unlike in the last game against Columbus? Well, the good news is they were able to do so, but they did had to make, or their goalkeeper Solana did had to make a save here, as he had to deny Crescito from long range, and then Shabilko had a chance to finish this game off from long range, but that one goes wide. But like I said, unlike the last game, the Fire. It was relatively comfortable for them to hold on to this 2-0 win, and the shots in this one, 12 shots compared to the 5 that TFC had, 6 shots on goal compared to the 2 that TFC had, 4 shots off target compared to the 3 that TFC had, 2 shots that was blocked compared to none that TFC had, and possession-wise, 58% possession compared to the 42% possession that the Chicago Fire has in this game. And, you know, obviously the Fire has been playing much better, especially at home, and if you don't include the implosion that they had, they have definitely done well so far at home in these last couple of games. But unfortunately, this is a Chicago Fire, and there is a reason why, even though fans are excited the fact that this team is back to winning form, how much is that going to be a case where the next couple of games they give you false hope and they find themselves back in a losing way. But speaking of losing way, that's what Toronto FC is in right now. And again, you know, even though they are still desperately waiting for the debut of Insigne, and then of course they just recently got Marc-Anthony Kaye back to their team. You know, I'm still surprised that they didn't really address that defense. I mean, they did Domenico Criscito in, but you know, Criscito he has looked good at times, but he's a fullback. They need center back help desperately, and the fact that they didn't do it this summer just continue to make me kind of question, and it's kind of a head scratcher of how in the world is this team still not able to realize the most obvious flaws of this team, and the reason why they are one of the worst team in the Eastern Conference despite the amount of money that they spend is the defense. I mean, they can throw like $10 or $15 million on the attack, but when you have no defense, you don't usually succeed very well in this league. But now moving on, in terms of the next match, is FC Cincinnati versus the Vancouver Whitecaps. And for Cincinnati, they'll be very frustrated with this game because this one, it looked like it got away with them. It looked like they were going to get a huge 3 points against the Vancouver Whitecaps. And then the Whitecaps were able to get a goal late to salvage a draw in this one. Though early on, it was Cincinnati getting the early lead as 3 minutes in, Barrial would score from Brenner to give Cincinnati a 1-0 lead. I thought Cropper probably should have done better in terms of that. I mean, it was hit from close range from Barrial, but there wasn't really a lot of pace into that, and I thought maybe Cropper should have react a little bit more quickly there. Again, you know, Cody Cropper still kind of just being a backup goalkeeper. Maybe I would need to kind of go easy on him because, like I said, he's still a backup goalkeeper, and he's a guy that I think you can say at best he's kind of a mid-tier kind of goalkeeper in MLS. But like I said, that's one that maybe he could have done better there. That gives Cincinnati a 1-0 lead. But thankfully for his team, that lead wouldn't last long because just 40 seconds after when Cincinnati take the 1-0 lead, well, actually it was a little bit more than that. Maybe it was like a minute and a half. Vancouver equalized. It's goal scoring from Dahome and Raposo to tie the game up at 1 apiece, and that's got to be frustrating if you're Cincinnati. Like, you thought that you got a dream start to the game, and then one lapse of concentration on the other end, and next thing you know, the ball is in the back of the net on the other end, and the game is all tied up at 1 apiece. So Vasquez tried to retake the lead for Cincy, but he hits one right to Cropper. But that being said, Vancouver looked like they almost got the second goal and take the lead for the first time this game, but the post denied Cavallini there from close range. And again, it was an entertaining start to this game. Like, both team was trying to push for that second goal. Eventually, Cincinnati would get that second goal and would retake the lead as Brendan Vasquez would score from Brenner to give Cincinnati a 2-1 lead. Again, Vasquez continue to make his case and continue to kind of play in a very, very angry mode after he was snubbed in terms of being on the All-Star roster this season. Barrial had a chance to make it 3-1, but he puts it one just wide before Vasquez had a looping header that just goes wide there. I mean, it had eyes in that top left corner, but you know, unfortunately, it just loops it high, and Cincinnati had to settle for a 2-1 lead as we head into halftime. Now, in the second half, Cropper actually had to be subbed off, and you know, I didn't watch this game. I only watched like the condensed highlights, so I'm not quite sure what kind of injury that he had to be bothered. So, in come Isaac for this game, making his first day ever MLS start, and it's always tough for someone to, of course, make their first ever start in the middle of the game. But you know, Isaac Boehmer is a guy that has played with the Whitecaps 2 team, and this is also another good credit to the MLS Next Pro League of how, I feel like with the creation of the MLS Next Pro League, we now see some goalkeeper that even though they are going to be thrown into the fire and making their first ever start, at least they have some competitive games when they're playing for the reserve team. So, Isaac Boehmer, even though making his first start in this one, really it isn't. I mean, he's making his first start in MLS, but he's already had some game experience coming into this game, and that, I know there's still going to be that nerves of now playing in the big time, but still, you kind of, when you have competitive games even in the lower division, it can definitely help remove those nerves. Well, won't remove the nerves, but kind of calm the nerves a little bit, and don't just kind of being thrown into the fire and just completely have no experience for that. And in fact, Cincinnati was trying to test him early on, because in the 72nd minute, Boehmer didn't make his first ever save in MLS as he tipped Barrios' free kick over. Before on the other end, White tried to puts it into the far post, but that one just missed wide. Goal then put a one-hopper to Sanitano, as Vancouver was definitely pushing for the equalizer. Though Santos did put one straight to Boehmer in the 81st minute. Again, Sergio Santos, another guy that I mentioned in the news of the week episode, being transferred from the Union to FC Cincinnati in this quest that Cincinnati is trying to create the Philadelphia Union from a couple of years ago. But that miss from Santos turns out to haunt Cincinnati, because just 1 minute after that miss, on the other end, Dahomey would score from Tosan Ricketts and Ryan Gaul to tie the game up at 2 apiece, though Cincinnati looked to retake the lead as Boehmer would deny Santos from close range. And that's kind of the frustrating thing about Sergio Santos, because he's a guy that we know he could be a goal scorer for the Union, but he can also be a guy that missed some big opportunity, and he definitely had some good opportunity to get his first ever goal for Cincinnati on his debut. But there was no doubt that Cincinnati was trying to push to get the lead back, and Vancouver, they looked like they were satisfied with a point, which in the end they got exactly that. As the shots in this one, 15 shots for the 11 that Vancouver has, 7 shots on goal for the 4 that the Whitecaps had, 3 shots off target for the 5 that Cincinnati has, 3 shots that was blocked for the 4 that Vancouver has, and possession-wise, 61% possession compared to 39% possession that the Whitecaps has in this game. And I know I said this one kind of got away for Cincinnati, but when you look at how this game turns out, I think a draw is definitely fair, because both teams had equal amount of chances. But like I said, I still think that this is one that kind of got away for Cincinnati, because they had a chance to get another huge 3 points at home, but they weren't able to do so, and they have to once again salvage a draw. And that, like I said, home form has been a problem for Cincinnati this season. They're dropping way too many points this year, and that the only reason why they are in the playoff hunt is because of their incredible road form. And even though I know even if they don't make it to the playoffs, it's still considered a success this season. But in the biggest picture, when you're in a playoff hunt, and even if you're overachieving, you want to make it to the playoffs. And if FC Cincinnati does not make it to the playoffs at the end of the season, this could be a game where they could look back as a game where if they just miss out by a point or two, this is the first game that they're going to look at as a one that really got away from them. If they were able to seize out a win, they probably would have made it to the playoffs if they just missed it by a point or two. But that being said, moving on, in terms of the next match, is going to be DC versus Columbus, which also ended in a 2-2 draw. But this was a game where, it was very interesting to see how DC is going to respond after a historic defeat in their team history, with them losing 7-0 against the Philadelphia Union. And for a while, it looks like they were in for another heartbreaking loss. But to the credit of DC, they able to show some fight back and show some good mentality, which is definitely not easy to do, because I'm pretty sure a lot of these DC players are still remember that 7-0 defeat that they had a couple of days ago, and to be able to get yourself back into kind of a reset in mind in just such a short week after that historic loss, I give a lot of credit for DC able to show that in this one. Though early on they could have had the opening goal just 8 minutes in, and probably should have, because Naha had a free header from close range and he missed that one wide. Before Rome did deny well, actually he did not deny Funtas. He robbed Funtas there. I mean, every time when Taxi Funtas go on goal, you bet the house the fact that Funtas is able to score with how hot he's his form has been in, but Room with a great save there to rob him as he went through on goal. And then it looked like it was 1-0 Columbus as Hurtado scored there, but unfortunately the goal was disallowed for offside. And then Hopkins trying to give DC the lead before halftime, but he missed that one just wide from 17 yards out. We had to halftime scoreless between both of these teams. Now in the second half, not much happening in the first 15 minutes as neither team really kind of threatening on the attack, though that changed in the 61st minute as Cucho Hernandez. I mean, he's definitely maybe making his case of being the newcomer of the year. I mean, I know it's still only just 2 games, but he once again had an incredible game for the Columbus crew, scoring 2 goals, and this was one of them as he scored here from Zarian and Nagbe to give the crew a 1-0 lead, and it was another golazo from Cucho Hernandez. Like, what a strike that was from outside the box, put it in the top bin on the right. And another one that even though I didn't write goal of the week with a question mark, I probably should have done it because that was just such a lovely goal that Cucho Hernandez scored there. But in the 69th minute, that lead wasn't jeopardized to be evaporate because a penalty was given to DC as VAR deemed that Room brought down Funtas in the box. And, you know, from what I originally looked, it looked like there wasn't a lot of contact in terms of it, but nowadays, you know, even with not a lot of contact, sometimes referee does decide to call it a penalty, or in this case, they decided to overturn it because the original call was no penalty, and here they did call it a penalty there. And in the 72nd minute, Funtas had a chance to tie the game up at 1 apiece. And again, you would have bet the house the fact that he would have put this one away, but he missed wide from the box. Yeah, that was not a great penalty, and he knew it too. Like, immediately when he puts that one wide, he immediately put his hand in front of his face in horror because, yeah, that's one that you do not see. Like, I know even the best penalty kick taker in the world does have some horror miss time and time, but, you know, again, with how hot that Taxi Funtas has been, you would have definitely bet that he would have put that one in, but he puts that one wide. And maybe in some way, maybe ball don't lie with the way that, again, you know, that penalty that was overturned by VAR maybe is a little bit soft in the minds of the Columbus crew, but nevertheless, you know, DC missed a big opportunity to tie the game up at 1 apiece. But in the 75th minute, Room did deny Kamara from the free kick, and that does not kind of put the spirit off of DC. Again, you know, they were fighting throughout this game to try to get a result, and they were definitely pushing for an equalizer in Columbus. They were going in full bunker mode, trying to preserve this 1-0 lead, as we've usually seen that happen a lot with road team, but that was not successful because in the 80th minute, Taxi Funtas would make amends of his horror miss that he had from the spot as he scored here from Roberta and Durkin to tie the game up at 1 apiece. And before DC had time to celebrate them getting themselves back into this game, they immediately concede on the other end as Cucho Hernandez again scoring from Zarian and Maria, and yeah, that was not great defending from DC. And again, you know, I talked about before, you know, you're always the most vulnerable when you score a goal, and they definitely did not get that message because they completely caught out there after they thought that they got themselves back into this game. But as we wind down to the last couple of minutes, it looked like it was going to be another heartbreaking loss for DC. But then in the second minute of stoppage time, Kamara would score here to tie the game up at 2 apiece, and that would turns out to be the final score of this game. As the shots in this one, 19 shots compared to 6 that Columbus had, 5 shots on goal compared to 3 that Columbus had, 8 shots off target compared to 1 that Columbus had, 6 shots that was blocked compared to 2 that Columbus had, and possession-wise, 51% possession compared to 49% possession that the crew has in this game. And even though it wasn't a win, I feel like for DC, it will definitely consider a win after what has happened in these last couple days, and especially when you look at the stats, they pretty much dominate this game, and it would have been very, very harsh and just kind of another heartbreaking thing where for 2 games in a row they suffered the 2 different heartbreak of just getting embarrassed on the road and then being dominant at home, but only comes up short in the end. But fortunately for them, they were able to salvage a point. And the only bad news about this is that they're now back down to dead last in the Eastern Conference. But in terms of morale itself, this is huge, because if they did lose this game, the morale would have continued to be very low. And now, you know, with them getting an equalizer, salvage a point, it definitely gives a better morale and maybe get a better sentiment. The fact that they can get themselves back on track in future games, because they need to of course do that, since they're still a long way out of the standings. So it's not going to be easy when the next game that they have to play is going to be on the road, and it is going to be a short week against Minnesota. But it will also be interesting to see whether or not if Wayne Rooney is going to make his debut, because I don't think he made his debut as a head coach of DC in this game. It was still Chad Ashton, but we'll see in the next game whether that is going to be the case. And how many times we've seen when a coach make his debut, sometimes you do get that coaching bump, and we'll see whether DC could maybe get that coaching bump with Wayne Rooney now being the head coach of this team for the rest of the season. But that being said, I am now going to switch boards and look at the next 4 games that happened in terms of the busy Wednesday night action of match week number 20. So moving on, in the next game is the Philadelphia Union versus Inter Miami, and talking about how the Union was on the right side of that 7-0 victory against DC after they of course handed that historic win in their franchise history. Coming into this game, I do have the question whether or not if that is going to resort them to have some momentum in the next game, or they could potentially have a letdown, as we'd seen before, where when one team decided to just play their best game in their franchise history, it can be very easy to have a letdown in the very next game. And while Philly wasn't as clinical in this game against Inter Miami, and they definitely did not put up the 7th spot against Miami, they did get a big win against Inter Miami in this one, and it also was a big win in a way where Inter Miami has been very good at home in these last couple of months. Like, they've gone over 100+ days without losing at home, started to establish Drive Pink Stadium as a fortress, but unfortunately they take the loss in this one, as the Union were able to win 2-1 in this one. Now, 5 minutes in, Calendar did deny Uru from close range, and I thought the Union was on the front foot. Again, they probably still feel the momentum that they had after that 7-0 thrashing that they had against DC, and were looking to try to get the opening goal. Calendar would deny Uru in the near post in the 11th minute, as the first Miami chance didn't come until the 22nd minute, as Emerson Rodriguez missed wide from close. But then in the 24th minute, a penalty was given to the Union after Mumbique brought down Uru in the box, which Gazdag was able to put away that penalty to give the Union a 1-0 lead. This time there was no debate in terms of who was actually going to take the penalty for the Union. Daniel Gazdag took the initiative, and he buries that one to give the visitor a 1-0 lead. Though that lead looked like it was short-lived, as Campana was looking to try to get one back for trying to equalize for Inter Miami, but he puts that one close from the header. Berg then hits one straight to Calendar before Bedoya hits it high in the 40th minute. It was a shout for a penalty for Miami, but on the same sequence, I think the Union players kind of stopped thinking that they commit a penalty. And we've seen so many times when teams decide to shout for a penalty, they kind of just stop playing thinking that they were going to get the call. But to the credit of Inter Miami, they never stopped, and they kind of caught the Union there, because they maybe was distracted the fact that the Miami players were shouting for a penalty, because Campana had a big opportunity from 10 yards out. But how many times we've seen this before, where Blake was able to make a big save to keep the Union either in the game, or in this case in the lead there. But I thought both teams was having some really good grade A chances, and they were looking to try to grab a goal before halftime. Mota had a chance to do so, but he fires one high from long range in the 43rd minute, and he had to halftime with the Union leading 1-0. Now, in the second half, there was a couple more half chances in the beginning of the second half, but I thought neither goalkeeper was really troubled. Sailor had a chance in the 62nd minute, but he hits one straight to Blake. But then in the 66th minute, Corey Burke would score from Wagner to give the Union a 2-0 lead. And again, that's pretty big for the Union, because this has been a team that have struggled in terms of scoring that second goal after getting the lead. And if you kind of ignore that 7-0 thrashing that they had against DC, I still think that this is a team that struggled to do so. But they definitely put that aside in this one, as they got a big second goal to lead 2-0 in favor of Inter Miami. Though Inter Miami definitely made this one interesting in the latter part of this game, as in the 82nd minute, Gonzalo Higuain would score here from Malta to get one back for Inter Miami. Definitely a goal of the week contention there, because Gonzalo Higuain, it has not been a good run of form for him, and that he's pretty much now being dropped down to being a substitute kind of bench player. But he's definitely making a case in this goal that he scores, so that he can win back his starting job, as he scored an absolute golazo to pull within one for Inter Miami. But just as you think that maybe Miami has the momentum and we're looking to try to push for the equalizer, the Union did a good job in terms of shutting that down. I mean, they were not letting any passing lane. They were kind of suffocating Miami on the attack. In fact, they almost had a chance to put this one away in the 89th minute, as Paxton Aronson almost finished it for the Union, but missed just high from 7 yards out. But in the end, Union grabbed a huge 3 points against Inter Miami, as the shots in this one, 12 shots compared to 11 that Philly has, 5 shots on goal compared to 3 that Miami has, 5 shots off target compared to 7 that Miami has, 2 shots that was blocked compared to 1 that the Union has, and possession-wise, 57% possession compared to 43% possession that the Union has in this game. And, for Inter Miami, that inconsistent form is starting to be back. Like, this is something that I've talked about before, especially in the first 2 seasons, where at times they have been very inconsistent, where they maybe go on a bit of a winning streak and then they go on a long losing streak, or in the case of their first year where they just aren't able to establish a streak, and they have that kind of pattern of win, draw, loss every game. And it seems like it's happening again with them, just unable to establish a winning streak right now, and just kind of holding them back in terms of actually staying above the red line. In fact, I think they once again find themselves below the red line, and I think they have been below the red line ever since they lost to Orlando City in the Florida Derby just a couple of days ago. But that being said, moving on in the next match, we got Nashville versus the Seattle Sounders, and just like the first ever meeting between both of these teams, it was the same scoreline. Nashville getting a 1-0 win against the Seattle Sounders, though this was a game where I feel like Nashville probably could have won by multiple goals, and it looked like late they were going to be made pay for not being clinical in terms of their finishing, as Seattle kind of got themselves back into this game, especially in the second half. But at least early on in the first half, Rodon did hit one right to Willis, and you're thinking maybe this is going to be another good start for Seattle. No, it wasn't, because in the 14th minute, Cleveland had to deny Mukhtar from the free kick. That was a beautiful save from Stefan Cleveland. I mean, Mukhtar really puts this one look like for out of reach for Cleveland to deny him, but Cleveland just full stretch, able to make a save there to keep this one at 0-0. Sapon then fired one wide from long range before Mukhtar heads a weak one right to Cleveland in the 21st minute, and Nashville were no doubt the better team in the first 20 minutes. Like, they were pressing to try to get the opening goal. Sapon had a chance to do so, but he missed just hard on the doorstep of goal, and then Leal fired one wide from 17 yards in the 34th minute. But then in the 44th minute, after all the pressure that Nashville put against the Sounders, it finally paid off, as in the 44th minute, who else but Hani Mukhtar scoring from Sapon and Leal to give Nashville a 1-0 lead. That was a perfect counterattack from Nashville. Like, this basically started in their own end, but just a picture perfect counterattack from Nashville, where we know that they are one of the more lethal team on the break, and they basically caught the Sounders there, and just like that, it gives Nashville a 1-0 lead. And also, it's got to put a lot of smiles in the Nashville fan base when you see their front three, both Mukhtar, Sapon, and Leal, all gets on the score sheet and the assist charts on there. But in the second minute of stoppage time, Ladero did try to tie it up for the Sounders right before the half, but he fired one right to Willis on the free kick, and we hit the end of the first half with Nashville holding a 1-0 lead. Now in the second half, it could have been 2-0, but Lovitz did hit a volley that was deflected and hits the side netting. Leyva then fired one wide from long range in the 58th minute, before in the 68th minute, Willis absolutely robbed Nuhu as he pushed that one onto the post. And for a second, we thought we finally see the moment when Nuhu finally scored his first ever goal for the Seattle Sounders. I mean, early on, we have Johan Kappelhoff finally breaking his duck of scoring his first goal, and you're just thinking, maybe this could be a night for another player that's and a player that probably is more well known in terms of finally scoring his first ever goal, and that it looked like that was the moment to do so. But what a big save that was from Willis there. I mean, I think that one also kind of took a deflection, which makes it even a harder save. But somehow, in some way, Willis was able to adjust himself and just again robbing New who a chance to not only tie the game up for Seattle, but I'm pretty sure Sounders fans were ready to celebrate, or even some Sounders fans at the stadium. They were ready to erupt like nothing else when they finally saw their fan favorite or their favorite player scoring his long awaited first goal in MLS. But there was no doubt that Seattle was pressing for the equalizer, and Nashville was on the ropes a little bit. I mean, in previous year, I wouldn't think that Nashville would blow a lead late, but recently that's been the problem for Nashville. Like, they have given up a lot of late goals, and it looked like they were in for another one in this one. But in the 75th minute, Bruin missed just wide from 7 yards out before Leal fired one right into the stands. And then Rusnak had a chance from the free kick, but he puts this one wide, and Nashville was going full bunker mode. Like, they were going with their usual full bunker mode, which usually in previous year, like I said, that's bad news for the opposition. But it feels like this season, teams have started to figure out how to play through that full bunker mode that Nashville tends to have. But this time, Nashville was able to hang on, and they also kind of time waste a little bit, frustrate the Sounders, any chance to gain some momentum to get themselves back into this game. But yeah, in the end, Nashville got a much needed home win in this one as they win 1-0 against the Seattle Sounders. And the shots in this one, 12 shots compared to 9 that the Sounders had, 2 shots on goal compared to 5 that Nashville has, 5 shots off target compared to 4 that Nashville has, 3 shots that was blocked compared to 2 that the Sounders had, and possession-wise, 55% possession compared to 45% possession that Nashville has in this game. And I think this is only the 3rd win for Nashville at this park, and as I mentioned, they've already played, I think, 7 games now at this park. It's still not a really good home record, but it's one that they need, or it's one that at least in this game they needed to win in this one, because that's been the big problem for this Nashville team this season, dropping points and losing at home, and it looked like it was going to not happen, especially against the Sounders in this one. But in the end, they pull off a big victory, and for the Sounders, I guess they're suffering from the post Cascadia Derby losses that we usually see. When a team win the Cascadia Derby, it propelled their season, but unfortunately, when you're a loser, it's gonna sting a while, at least for a week or two before you get yourself back in form. And I think that's what the Sounders are feeling right now, still trying to rub off that disappointing Cascadia Derby loss against the Portland Timbers just a couple of days ago. But that being said, moving on, in the next match, we have the Colorado Rapids versus Orlando City. And while I said about Nashville getting a much needed home win, Colorado was looking for that, but unfortunately they weren't able to do so, because there's that guy called Pedro Galese, and you know how he's been a goalkeeper, is considered one of the top 5 goalkeeper in the league. And even though this season he's definitely having a down year for Orlando City, he was on top of his game in this one, and he probably is the reason why Orlando was able to escape with a point out of this game, as the Rapids were putting non-stop pressure on this Orlando side, but just couldn't quite get that second goal to get all 3 points. Now, early on, just 1 minute into this game, Urso had a shot that took a deflection, but right to Yarbrough, before Michel puts it wide on a shot, or actually, hold on a second, that doesn't sound right here. Let me just change that. Yeah, I don't know why I wrote it like that. That doesn't make sense. The fact that he puts a shot away from Michel, that's not even a sentence. What I was trying to say is that Michel puts a shot wide from close range in the 4th minute before Pato did hits one right to Yarbrough, and there was no doubt Orlando was lively in the opening of this game, and they were looking to try to get the opening goal, which they do. In the 22nd minute, it's Facundo Torres scoring his 4th goal of the season from Pato to give Orlando a 1-0 lead, and it kind of came off of a throw-in. Yeah, whenever a goal came off of a throw-in, it's bad defending, and well, this was kind of bad luck for the Rapids, because when it came off the throw-in, it kind of took a bit of a deflection in the box, but still, you do not allow a goal from a throw-in if you're able to defend your lines, and the Rapids didn't do so in that one, and they paid the price by going down 1-0 in this game. Though in the 28th minute, Lewis looked to equalize for Colorado, but was denied by the post. And Colorado kind of took over the possession, and this is something we've seen a lot this season with Orlando, where once they get that 1-0 lead, they're going to just shut it down. And that's kind of frustrate Orlando City fans, where it feels like almost Orlando is trying to do the row heave mode every single game, whereas as soon as they go 1-0, we're just going to shut it down and hope and pray that we hold on to all 3 points in this one. And at least I will say that to Orlando's credit, compared to Minnesota, Orlando has been much better in terms of trying the row heave mode kind of tactics. But I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that their defense is a little bit better than what the Minnesota United backline is this season. But we do head to halftime with Orlando holding a 1-0 lead. And again, despite Colorado was dominating possession, they were finding no passing lanes with how Orlando was shutting it down throughout the remaining of the first half. But in the second half, it looked like Colorado equalized as Zardes had a free header in the back post. I mean, it was a point-blank free header. Somehow Gallese was able to rob him in the 49th minute. And then in the 60th minute, Michel was trying to give Orlando a 2-0 lead on a rare attack, but he puts it wide on a lightning counter attack. Zardes then heads one just hard on the doorstep of goal. Again, Jerzy Zardes very active in this game. He was determined to finally score his first goal for the Colorado Rapids. And I also thought that the game kind of started opening up because, there was chances left and right, and it's kind of started turning to a bit of a track meet. But then in the 65th minute, I just said that Jerzy Zardes been waiting for that moment to finally get his first goal for the Rapids. He finally did in this, as he scored here from Barrios and Rubio to tie the game up at 1 apiece. And then it looked like it was quickly 2-1 in favor of Colorado if it wasn't for Gallese denying Max from close range. And then 1 minute later, he would rob Rubio again from point blank from the Rapids, and the momentum was all with Colorado up to that point. Like, the Rapids were pushing for that lead. Orlando was hanged by a threat. Though the only reason why they're still tied at 1 apiece is Gallese is in top of his game. Like, he was standing on his head with some of the most incredible save we have seen this season. Rubio had a chance to give the Rapids the lead in the 80th minute, but he struck one straight to Gallese before Rosenberry fired one wide from long range in the 85th minute. And despite Colorado pushing to trying to get that winner, they weren't able to do so, as in the end, they had to salvage a 1-1 draw against Orlando City. And the shots in this one, 19 shots compared to 12 that Orlando City had. 7 shots on goal compared to 4 that Orlando has. 2 shots off target compared to 5 that the Rapids had. 7 shots that was blocked compared to 6 that Orlando City has. And possession-wise, 51% possession compared to 49% possession that Orlando City has in this game. There is no doubt that Orlando is going to be overwhelmingly happy your side coming out of this one, and that for the Rapids, it's now 6 games without a win. And this misery for the Rapids continue, and that, again, the big issue for this Rapids team this season has to do with the fact that they still don't have a lethal goal scorer like they did last season, and that this was always was a problem coming into this year, and that I think now the frustration is starting to mount even more, especially with Rapids fan, that they're now getting incredibly frustrated. The fact that I don't think that this is a big surprise with how much they struggle this season because they don't have a goal scorer. Because if they had a goal scorer in this game, they would have easily won this one. But how many times we've seen this season where they don't have that goal scorer, don't have that number 9 that can bang in the goal. I mean, they tried with Jerzy Zardes, and even though with Zardes finally getting a goal in this game, I still don't think he's going to be the answer for this team. And that, yeah, I think for the Rapids this summer, it's a big summer coming up for them, because they are definitely now gone all the way down to 13 in the West, the lowest point of this season, and that they don't find themselves that DP number 9 that I think many fans has been crying for a very long time. This team could potentially not make it to the playoffs, and as much as I also hate to say it, that also maybe it gives an excuse for the front office to potentially fire Robin Fraser. And out of how bad the form that the Rapids had, I don't think this is Robin fall. I mean, he is doing his best in that. I think last year he definitely overachieved and worked some miracle with this team, but you can only work as much miracle until your squad just simply aren't good enough. And I just think for this Rapids, they just don't have good enough squad to compete in the West, and especially on that attack where they just don't have any lethal goal scored for this team to really compete for those playoff position like they did in previous year. But that being said, moving on into the next match, we got FC Dallas versus NYCFC. And speaking of a team that also has been struggling in recent form, it's FC Dallas. So they continue to struggle at home. This is now 4 games without a win, and the third games that they have suffered a loss in the last 4 home games as they lose 1-0 against NYCFC. And what's frustrating about this game is that NYCFC didn't really play well in this one. In fact, they were also missing their talisman Tati Castellanos, and they still somehow able to get all 3 points out of this one. In the 5th minute, Hara did head it high over the bar as there was not much happening in this game. Only 1 shot throughout the first 22 minutes, and I immediately wrote the heat and fatigue must be the factor in this one, because anytime when a game is taking place in Texas, and even though this game is a late kickoff, the heat is still going to be a factor. And that, I mean, when both of these teams have been playing a lot of games lately, it's not a big surprise that it's been a relatively slow pace kind of game. Almost kind of looked like a friendly game at times with how slow pace it was. Though Magno did have the second shot of the game in the 23rd minute as he fires it wide from close range. But then in the 29th minute, Bear would score from Rodriguez to give NYCFC a 1-0 lead, and this was a gift from FC Dallas. I mean, this came off of a WTF turnover in their own box, and anytime when you give possession away that cheaply, especially against this lethal NYCFC attack, we know what's going to happen. You're going to get punished, and that's what exactly Dallas found themselves in, as they found themselves 1-0 down against NYCFC. Hara did try to equalize immediately, but he heads it wide, and actually heads that one into the stands. Hara then tried to chipped it over Johnson in the 41st minute, but it's going to take a lot to try to chip over the head of Sean Johnson there, and it's unsurprising that was not successful. In fact, it didn't even hit the target. Acevedo then had a late chance for NYCFC as he fires it just wide from long range. Actually, that shot took a deflection, but we do head to halftime with NYCFC leading 1-0. Now, in the second half, Hara did puts it wide after another bad mistake on the defensive end that we saw, but this time coming from NYCFC. Like, this one was just almost similar to the one that FC Dallas was punished, but thankfully for NYCFC, they weren't punished in this play. And in some way, they got to also thank Jesus Ferreira for not punishing them, because, I think Jesus Ferreira made the wrong choice here. Like, he could have easily gone 1v1 with Johnson there, and that with the form that he's been in, I would have thought that he would decided to just be a little bit selfish and trying to take on his fellow countryman and his fellow national team teammate. But no, he decided to kind of play this one back, and by then NYCFC had a chance to trying to kind of get that one away. In fact, they kind of read the fact that Fiora was trying to pull it back, and they were ready to just clear that one away. Though Hara did get something on it, but he puts that one wide. But besides that, again, not much happening in the second half either, which kind of favors NYCFC, because when you're the team that's winning and not much is happening, that means you're in a comfortable way to get all 3 points. Though Johnson did deny Fiora in the back post in the 70th minute, and as the time winds down, Dallas was pressing to try to get the equalizer and getting some chances, while NYCFC was holding on to that 1-0 lead. Martinez hits one right into the side netting, which kind of fooled a couple of thousand of people inside Toyota Stadium, but that one of course hit the side netting, and that I can see why that kind of fools some fans depending on where they are sitting. But O'Brien then puts it way wide from close in the 89th minute, and it feels like it's all hands on deck for NYCFC as they were trying to hang on to get this 1-0 victory. Tafari had a late chance in the 8th minute of stoppage time, but he missed wide on the header from close range, and in the end, NYCFC able to hold on to win 1-0 in this game. In fact, they only had 4 shots in this game compared to 12 that FC Dallas had. But despite the fact that Dallas had more of the shots, only one of them was on goal. And NYCFC also had 1 shot on goal. That was the goal that they, of course, scored. 2 shots off target for the 6 that Dallas had. 5 shots that was blocked for the 1 that NYCFC had. And possession-wise, 49% possession compared to 51% possession that NYCFC has in this game. And in a game where it was relatively boring and there isn't a lot that happening, NYCFC was able to walk away with all 3 points. And that, like I said, for Dallas, the struggle continues. And that, I think it is safe to say after that good run that they had in the beginning of the season, they are starting to come back down to earth. And that, we knew that this Dallas team maybe kind of overachieved a little bit, at least in the first half of the season. But at the same time, we also thought that some of those big impact players like Velasco, Areola, and even Fierro is playing very, very well. And that's the reason why Dallas was in a hot form in the early part of the season. But it seems like that front three has now started to go on cold, and because of that, it is not a big surprise that FC Dallas is really struggling, and especially in terms of the goal scoring department, as the goals have started to run out dry for this team, with their front three not producing the way that we saw in the first half of the season. But that being said, I am now going to switch the board one more time to look at the 2 national televised games that happened in terms of the midweek action of match week number 20. So now let's take a look at these last 2 games, which were the national televised game from yesterday. And we start off with Minnesota versus Sporting KC. And you knew after these last 3 games where the Loons were playing some of the best soccer that they played this season, that they were due for a bad performance. And this indeed was a bad performance against Sporting KC. And in some way, they were very fortunate to walk away with a point out of this game, because the inability to finish from Sporting KC and also Dane Sinclair bailing this team out of what seems like the 100th time is the reason why Minnesota was very fortunate to walk away with a point against Sporting KC. And early on, Showery did hit one wide from close range before Dane Sinclair denied Showery after just a WTF turnover from Robin Led. It won't be the last time I'll talk about WTF turnover from Minnesota, because there was just so many giveaway in the first half. And, I know this defense this season isn't as good as we've seen in previous year, but it was absolutely unprecedented of how many times they were giving the ball away in their own half. And that kind of allowed Sporting KC to not only be on the front foot, but also take advantage of those bad giveaway from the Loons after, it was a slow start from the host. Huwane then had Minnesota's first opportunity, but he puts it high from 7 yards out. And, they did start to show some life, Minnesota, but again, I feel like they were overplaying it on the attack. And that's, I think, is even more frustrating than when a team lacked that final ball. Because, I've seen times before this season that the Loons sometimes overplay on the attack. Just kind of look for the perfect opportunity when you don't need to do that. You don't need to basically find that perfect opportunity. If you're just a little bit faster on your attack and you're able to play the good through ball, then sometimes you don't need to just kind of overplay and overpassing, and that's what the Loons were doing in the early bit. They were just overpassing again the Sporting KC defense, and again, it's not the first time I've seen them happen this season. Though there was a shout for a penalty for Minnesota, but the offside flag went up, and whether or not if there was a penalty on that, we'll never know because the flag went up. Then Dane Sinclair denied Duke in the front post before on the other end, Lud blast one high off of the free kick. Duke then puts it wide after, guess what? A bad mistake once again by Minnesota on the defensive end, and this time it's Dibasi the one that whiffs on a clearance. This was probably the worst game for Bakai Dibasi in a Minnesota United jersey, because my oh my, he was gifting Sporting KC a lot of chances in this one, and this was just probably the worst one where, we've seen times when you're a defender and you whiff on a clearance, you are basically get punished, and he is very fortunate that he wasn't being punished here. And so is the Loons too. I mean, they have been playing with fires with those mistakes, and somehow they were very lucky the fact that they did not concede, and that Sporting KC weren't able to take advantage of those mistakes. Amaria then hits one straight to Milia in the 37th minute. Before in the 44th minute, an own goal was scored, and this was actually credit to Pushkin, but in many ways, you gotta say this probably should have been credit to Fontas, where Fontas basically tried to clear that one away, and he cleared it right into his goalkeeper, and that one just went in. I mean, that is probably one of the most unfortunate situations for Sporting KC, and probably one of the luckiest goal that Minnesota has. I mean, after that goal was scored, I was convinced that the soccer gods was definitely smiling on Minnesota, because this was one of the worst first half I've seen from the Loons, and yet that mistake give the home side a 1-0 lead. And if you're Sporting KC, it just feels like, oh god, it's this happening again? This has been kind of the story of this season, where we've been just getting no luck whatsoever, and is this going to be one of those days that it's going to feel like that again? But heading into the second half, Hernandez did blast one into the stands before, in the 51st minute, Pierre almost scored a second own goal for Sporting KC, but fortunately that one didn't actually trickle into the net. Almeria then puts it high on the header. I thought it was a good start for the Loons. I mean, much better start to this game. Whatever Adrian Heath said at halftime definitely worked out, and that's something it is not often, because it feels like time and time again this team has always struggled in the second half, but they kind of started the second half strong and showed more attacking intensity than they did in the entire part of the first half. Sharawi then blasts one high from close range before Reynoso puts it wide from long range. Then Dane Sinclair was able to deny Johnny's from close range, but then in the 64th minute, Johnny Russell would score from Pierre to tie the game up at 1 apiece, and it shouldn't be surprised to anyone that came off of a turnover. I mean, as the old saying go, you can only play with fire until it eventually burns you, and yeah, I mean, you can only commit so many mistakes before you are going to be punished, and the Loons was definitely punished because of a bad giveaway there, and just like that, the game was all tied up at 1 apiece, though it looked like it didn't stay tied for very long, because Almeria puts it into the back of the net, but the problem is the goal was disallowed for offside on the attacking sequence, and I believe, I think it was Lud, the one that was in an offside position on the attacking sequence. I might be completely wrong, but either way, there was an offside on the attacking sequence there. And then fast forward in the 83rd minute, Almeria tried to score again, and probably should have done better here, because he had a free header there. I mean, it was a great save from Pushkamp, but with the form that Almeria is in, which feels like he's finally found something in these last couple of games, you would definitely think that he would bury that one in. Though on the other end, Dane Sinclair did deny Russell, and he kind of spills it as he denied Russell there, which, Sporting KC had a chance to score on that juicy rebound that Dane Sinclair allowed, but fortunately for the Loons, they couldn't capitalize, and it was really Rosales, the one that made a great defensive play to clean up that mess, because that would not be a great goal to concede. And that, for Dane Sinclair, I said that in this game he had made some big save to keep this team in the game and have bailed this team out, but that's probably one that, yeah, if he conceded, he definitely do not want to look back, and that probably would have been a different storyline of how, despite the many great save that Dane Sinclair has made, he also allowed a very soft one. Though that being said, as the full-time whistle approached, there was a ball that was pinned ball in the box, and ESPN actually didn't even show the entirety. Like, they were busy showing in terms of the last replay, and next thing you know, the ball was pinned ball in, and I think Rosales was the one that was ready to tap it in, because, he was kind of on the ground, and I think John Champion mentioned the fact that he was going to tap in or something like that, but either way, it was a scramble for the ball, but unfortunately for Minnesota, they weren't able to tap it in. Sporting KC cleared their lines, and the final whistle was blown. So, yeah, in the end, it ended in a 1-1 draw in this one, and the shots in this one, 10 shots for the 12 that Sporting KC had, 3 shots on goal for the 5 that Sporting KC had. Both teams had 5 shots off target, 2 shots that was blocked for both teams, and possession-wise, 53% possession compared to the 47% possession that Sporting KC has in this game, and, overall, again, it was not a great performance from the Loons, and I guess maybe this has to do with the fact that, they play so many games in these last couple of weeks that maybe fatigue is starting to catch up to him. And unfortunately, if they do have fatigue, they don't have a lot of time to rest on that, because they have another game on Saturday against DC United, and that could also be the game where we could see the debut of Wayne Rooney. And hopefully for Minnesota, if they are going to play against DC and that Wayne Rooney is making his debut, they show some more intensity in that one and don't end up to be on the wrong end of history of seeing Wayne Rooney getting his first ever win as a DC United head coach. Because yeah, we said so many times before, whenever you face a team that has a new head coach, that's usually one of the most dangerous teams to face, because you know the players are going to be up for their new head coach, and that, yeah, you know, for Minnesota, they have to play better on Saturday at home against DC, because anytime when you draw points at home, it's not a great feeling, but especially against a Sporting KC side that, you know, I will give credit to Sporting KC. They are starting to turn things around a little bit, and in these last couple of weeks, I think they have like got reserve 3 out of their last 4 games, and although they're still near the bottom of the standings and that there's still a long way before they can get themselves back to the playoff contention, they're at least not giving up just yet, and they're not just thinking what I thought they were going to do, which is just focus solely on the US Open Cup and pretty much punt the league play for the rest of the season. No, this team is still fighting, and they're looking to continue this relatively good run to dig themselves out of just such a deep hole that they dig themselves in the first half of the season. But that being said, moving on into the last game on this board is the Cali Clasico between the Quakes and the Galaxy. And you know, this game was kind of similar to the one that I watched between Minnesota and the Galaxy down at Carson and at Dignity Health Sports Park a couple of weeks ago, because this was a game just like how Minnesota did against the Galaxy. The Quakes went up 3-0 heading into the first half, and then they kind of went row heave mode in the second half and just kind of hang on for dear life. And also, not to mention, JT Marcinkowski once again stood on his heads in this one, and if he didn't make those big saves that he had in this one, especially in the second half, we could have been talking about a different result, and the Quakes could have blew a 3-0 lead in this one. Though early on in the first half, Araujo did blast one into the stands from close range before a penalty was given to the Quakes after Kikanovic was brought down by Araujo. I mean, it was a tough game for Julian Araujo, and maybe this is another game where a lot of people are going to be even more upset the fact that he was picked to be in the All-Star game, because yeah, this was not a great game for him, and here just not great defending there. It's just kind of clumsy foul there in the box to bring down Kikanovic in the box, which Espinoza was able to put away the penalty to give the Quakes a 1-0 lead. And before I even get a chance to put Espinoza and penalty on the board, the Quakes would score again. This time it's Ebobisse scoring from Montero to give the Quakes a 2-0 lead. You knew that Jeremy Ebobisse was going to end up on the score sheet. He just tends to love to score against the LA Galaxy, whether he's a Quakes player or a Portland Timbers player. But really, this doesn't help the fact that it came off of just a terrible giveaway for the Galaxy. Like, this was just straight from the kickoff. Koulibaly literally just gave it straight to Montero there, and that kind of sums up the Galaxy defense in these past couple of years, where they just sometimes make some of the most boneheaded play. That is the reason why for whatever reason they always are considered, well, not for whatever reason, but is the reason why they're considered one of the worst defensive team in the league. But in the 22nd minute, Edwards did puts it wide from long range before Marcinkowski did deny Grandsir from close range. I thought it was just way too much space the Quakes were given to the Galaxy to operate on the attack, and that's also kind of been the story for the Quakes this season on the defensive department. There's just so many times where they just decide not to show up in the defensive department, especially on the road. And at the same time, I also thought the Galaxy, they were really pushing to try to get one back with those sustained pressure, but then in the 40th minute, they would concede a third goal, and it's Marcos Lopez, the one that gets on the score sheet from Kikanovic to make it 3-0 in favor of the Quakes. So Kikanovic, even though he did not get on the score sheet here, he actually got on the assist chart, and he actually had a really good game. And it's safe to say that I think Benji Kikanovic has earned that starting spot over K-Cal for a bit, because these last couple of games he has been in such a great form. But you also got to give credit to Marcos Lopez there. You know, it seems like he only score great goals when he gets on the score sheet, and this was definitely a great goal too, because he went around Bond, and it looked like he lost the angle there, but somehow from the tightest angle he still were able to tap it into the empty net. And yeah, just like that, the Quakes were up 3-0 in this game, and you're thinking, well, this should be easy 3 points for the Quakes, right? Because we've seen this before, where the Quakes have been able to absolutely destroy the Galaxy on the road in the Cali Clasico, most recently back in 2020. But then you need to remember this is the Quakes, and you know that just like the other team that I root for, Minnesota, they're not going to make it easy, because in the second half, just 3 minutes in, Dejan Joveljic scored from Cabral and Alvarez to get one back for the Galaxy. I gotta feel so bad for Dejan Joveljic. Like, he is single-handedly carrying this Galaxy team, especially during the bad time. And that, yeah, in this game, once again, he was able to not only get on the score sheet, but get on the score sheet twice. And you also wonder if there is a guy that deserved to be on the All-Star team, which, you know, we found out Chicharito and Araujo basically gets on the All-Star team. But you gotta make a strong case that Joveljic should have been in there too. Or if not, Joveljic probably should have replaced either Chicharito or Araujo, or even both of those players to be in the All-Star game, because he is the reason why this team's still able to show that fight back at times, and also carry that attack when pretty much none of these Galaxy attack, and that's including Chicharito, are that just been are not firing at all in terms of the goal scoring department. But I also wrote that is exactly not the way the Quakes want to start the second half. Like, the last thing you want when you're up 3-0 is to give up a goal straight away in the second half, because that gives momentum to the opposition. And certainly the Galaxy took advantage of that momentum. But then in the 52nd minute, this is where it was the JT show, because first he denied Araujo from close range before Mark Sinkowski denied Costa from long range there. And again, I thought JT was bailing out of what just basically is a non-existent defense for the Quakes. So they decided not to play defense, knowing the fact that, yeah, you know, 3-0 lead, we might as well just forget about playing defense for a bit. Cabral then whiffs a shot that was blocked off the line before Costa blasts one into the stands on the free kick. And that not only the fact that I said the Quakes just need to survive this pressure, which was on them, but I was just hoping the Quakes don't give up the second goal, because if they give up the second goal, I won't be surprised that their third goal will come very soon for the Galaxy. But the good news is they did survive that storm, and then they kind of regained the momentum back toward them. Bond did deny Cal from close range in the 68th minute. Again, momentum was switched for the Quakes, as they were now the one that looked to try to put this game away and restore the 3-goal lead. Cal actually went through on goal, but lost his touch in the crucial moment. I mean, that's not going to help his cases in terms of getting into the starting 11. Before, on the other end, Alvarez hits one straight to Mark Sinkowski, and then in the 88th minute, guess who? It's Joveljic. He scored again here from Costa to get within one for the Galaxy, and all of a sudden, it's squeaky bum time for the Quakes, because it is these last couple of minutes. It's about to get very, very tense, and that it just brings me deja vu moment back from that Minnesota versus Galaxy game, where Joveljic scored like around the same time to pull within one, and these last couple of games was gonna be very, very nervy. In fact, Cabral actually had a big opportunity to tie the game up at 3 apiece as he went through on goal. But the good news is that one fall into Kevin Cabral, which you know what's going to happen when Kevin Cabral goes through on goal. He sometimes decided to overplay it, took too many touches, and this was the case this year, where he took too many touches, and basically his shot was blocked by the Quakes player, because he took too long to trying to shoot that. And yeah, in the end, despite the pressure that the Galaxy put to the Quakes, and despite this Cow's Classico was once again kind of an instant classic, and thing got interesting, the Quakes hold on to win 3-2 to finally get their first road win of the season, and their first road win of what seems like it's been forever since I remember the last time they got a road win. I think it's been like almost 9 months since they got a road win. But yeah, they hold on to win 3-2 in this game. The shots in this one, 25 shots compared to 11 that the Quakes had. 10 shots on goal compared to 4 that the Quakes has in this game. 6 shots off target for the 4 that the Quakes had. 3 shots that was blocked within 9 that the Galaxy had. In possession-wise, 55% possession compared to 45% possession that the Quakes has in this game. And, you know, again, it wasn't pretty, but honestly, when you see a team that hasn't won in a long time, sometimes it doesn't really need to be pretty. You just need to get all 3 points and get the lead by the end of the 90th minute and by the end of the full-time whistle, and that's exactly what the Quakes got. And now, you know, I know now that they are 5 points back off the playoff position, and that, you know, I did mention in the news of the week, now it is going to be a tough decision that this front office is going to make. But because do they think about buying some players in the summer transfer window where they're going to get some defensive reinforcement to make a playoff push? Because again, I said all this time that they're not going to make the playoffs, and something tells me they still won't, because I feel like this is kind of like the they're trying to get me again. They're trying to make me believe, even though I fall through this so many times, and it's getting to a time where I have kind of become very pessimistic with this team, and I refuse to fall into that trap, thinking that they're back to competitiveness. But at the same time, the standings and the numbers don't lie. The fact that they could be right back into this race, and this does make a tough decision now for the front office. Where do they think about buying players, knowing the fact that they're still under an interim head coach right now, and that also, will they maybe make the decision to hire a head coach right in the middle of the season? Because there's been rumors that Landon Donovan could be the next head coach of the Quakes, and as I mentioned in the news of the week, that's going to not only create more chaos of what has been a chaotic season this year in MLS in terms of coaching changes, but man, that's going to really split the Quakes fan base, because I know there's a large amount of Quakes fans that are still haven't forgive Landon Donovan for what he did 17 years ago, and probably will never forget it for what he did, and decide to become a traitor for this Quakes team. But for the Galaxy itself, I mean, this just kind of sums up this season for them, especially at home, where it just feels like, I talked about this season, Dignity Health Sports Park. It used to be a fortress for the Galaxy. It's not a fortress anymore, and it hasn't been a fortress for this team for the past couple of seasons. Teams are literally coming in and get free points every single week, and the Quakes are just kind of the latest example of that, and that Galaxy fans have every right to be angry right now, because not only the fact that there's been no progress that they made from last season, but it feels like they're going backwards with the way that they're getting very close to potentially falling out of the playoffs. And if they do not make the playoffs this season, it will once again consider a catastrophic failure. And even Greg Vanney, a guy that I haven't mentioned that could be potentially on the hot seat, and I know Galaxy fans have kind of want Vanney need to leave for a while now. He could potentially find himself on the hot seat if this team does not make it to the playoffs. But either way, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys do like, smash the subscribe button. Let me know in the comments below what do you think of both of these games and also the 8 other games I talked about earlier. But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.